You are not God. Only He can create a man and woman. If you think you can, you are defying God's plan. The evil Dr. Frankenstein care about riches, not your mental health. Deep dive podcast show. Let's dive in. Amen. Quam dementia tua est. Spiritus qui venita Deo super orabo pro te Deus te amat. A Montibussa de Campos, a Burbibussa de Mare, stamus pro libertate, pro fide familia. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. Mergimus profunde.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where you come if you want to really get to grips with important information quickly and thoroughly.
That's right. And today we're digging into a recent investigation focused on Planned Parenthood. It's based on a report from Live Action.
Okay, so for our sources today, we're mainly looking at an opinion piece, right, from dailywire.com.
Exactly. It summarizes those Live Action findings, and importantly, it also pulls in some social media reactions.
Got it.
So our mission really is to pull out the key details, the main arguments that these sources are making about Planned Parenthood's activities right now.
Okay, let's unpack it.
Yeah.
A major theme that jumps right out is Planned Parenthood's growing involvement in what the sources label gender-affirming care.
Yes, that's front and center. And there's a pretty striking statistic they lead with.
Which is?
That Planned Parenthood is apparently now the second largest provider of what they call gender-affirming hormones in the entire U.S.
Wow, second largest. That's significant.
It really is. And this seems to be backed up by a big increase in patients seeking this specific care there. The Daily Wire piece mentions around 40,000 patients in 2023.
40,000. And how does that compare to previous years?
Well, according to the article, that's a tenfold increase just since 2017.
Tenfold? That's huge.
It's a dramatic jump. It definitely makes you wonder, what's driving that? Is it changing awareness, access, demographics? The piece points this out as a major development.
And they mention the age group too, don't they?
They do. The largest chunk, roughly 40%, is reported to be young adults, specifically 18 to 22-year-olds.
And it's not just a few clinics.
Apparently not. The report claims that 45 out of their 49 affiliated facilities are providing this type of care. So pretty widespread availability within their network.
Okay, so widespread availability, rapid growth. That naturally leads to questions about access and, I suppose, oversight.
Precisely. And that's another major thread in the Daily Wire opinion piece. The author raises a broader concern there.
Broader how?
Well, about what they see as maybe easy access and potentially not enough oversight for, quote, potent, potentially dangerous, mind-altering drugs. And they don't just mean hormones here.
Right.
They actually loop in SSRIs as another example in that context. But the focus regarding Planned Parenthood in this part is definitely the gender-affirming care.
Right. And this is where the undercover investigation comes in, the one by Live Action.
Exactly. This is a key piece of evidence presented in the Daily Wire article.
So what allegedly happened there?
According to the report summarized in the piece, a 16-year-old, posing as a girl, contacted Planned Parenthood asking about gender-affirming care, specifically cross-sex hormones.
Okay.
And the response, reportedly, was that this was completely fine and could even be handled through virtual appointments.
Virtual appointments for that kind of treatment.
That's the claim. And the opinion piece definitely flags that virtual aspect.
What's the concern there, according to the piece?
The implication framed by the author is that these are potentially life-altering treatments being discussed, maybe even initiated without, a thorough in-person medical evaluation. And tied to that, the piece also mentions a claim from Live Action that if a minor did go to a clinic in person, their mother might not necessarily need to be in the exam room.
Okay, so concerns about oversight, remote access, parental involvement.
Yeah, and that builds into the next major allegation, which is quite direct.
Which is?
That Planned Parenthood, according to these sources, specifically targets minors for gender-affirming care.
Targets them? How?
The Daily Wire piece, citing Live Action, claims this happens online and also through schools. They say Planned Parenthood disseminates a, quote, pro-transgender ideology.
Okay, that's a strong claim. Do they give specifics?
They do. They point to a specific Planned Parenthood video.
What about it?
This video allegedly describes puberty blockers as being like a reversible stop sign. Crucially, the report claims the video doesn't mention potential side effects.
Just presents it as reversible. No strings attached.
That's the accusation, yes. If that's accurate, it obviously raises questions about informed consent for young people.
And there was more about schools, wasn't there? Something about elementary schools.
Yes. The report alleges Planned Parenthood provides sex ed materials even to elementary schools.
And these materials include?
Reportedly, information on puberty blockers. And also, this detail was highlighted, graphics of pubic hair art.
Pubic hair art in elementary school materials.
That's the specific claim made in the live-action report and cited by the Daily Wire. The opinion piece presents this as evidence of an inappropriate agenda targeting young children.
Okay. And there was another specific incident mentioned involving an undercover actor again.
Right. This one involved, allegedly, a 14-year-old actor.
And what happened there?
The claim is that Planned Parenthood didn't provide the treatment directly, but referred the actor elsewhere for gender-affirming services.
Why the referral, according to the report?
The reason given, according to the sources, was specifically to help conceal the, quote, transition from the child's parents.
Wow. Okay, if true, that raises, huge questions about parental rights, ethics.
Absolutely. Serious legal and ethical implications regarding transparency and minors' healthcare decisions without parental knowledge or consent.
So these are specific allegations around the gender care side, but the opinion piece also brings in broader criticisms, right?
Oh, yes. It frames these newer allegations within a long-standing critique. It explicitly calls Planned Parenthood the leading abortion mill in the U.S.
And gives a statistic for that.
Yeah, it asserts they perform roughly 40% of all abortions nationally. That context is, fundamental to how critics view the organization.
And this inevitably leads to the money. Federal funding.
Always. The Daily Wire piece puts the figure at around $700 million a year in taxpayer funding.
$700 million. So the piece connects these gender care allegations and the abortion numbers to this funding question.
Definitely. It layers these concerns on top of other accusations from past live-action investigations, too.
Such as?
The article lists several, including alleged trafficking in human body parts, violations of health codes, patient privacy violations, and even accusations of anti-white racism.
Those are incredibly serious allegations.
Extremely serious. And they all feed into the central argument of the opinion piece.
Which is fundamentally about the funding.
Yes. The core question the author poses is, why does Planned Parenthood still receive federal funding, especially when, at the time of writing, Republicans controlled Congress and the White House?
Does the author suggest there's a legal basis to stop it now?
Yes. The argument made is that some of these existing alleged violations like patient privacy breaches, fraud, or the alleged fetal tissue trafficking could potentially be grounds for an executive order to halt funding immediately.
So they believe the power to act might already be there.
That's the suggestion, that the executive branch might not need new legislation.
And what's the piece ultimately calling for? Just defunding?
Well, defunding is presented as the absolute minimum.
The minimum.
Yeah, the author actually argues for Planned Parenthood to be, quote, forcibly shut down entirely, and for its executives to be put on trial.
That's a very aggressive stance.
It is. It reflects deep opposition.
Does the piece acknowledge the likely fallout from such actions? Protests, media reaction.
It does, briefly. It anticipates that the left would be angry, the media would complain, activists would protest, but it basically dismisses these as noise.
Dismisses them.
By framing it as a moral issue that overrides political inconvenience. The piece says those reactions aren't good enough reasons to keep funding an organization facing these kinds of allegations.
Is there any comparison made?
Yeah, there's a quick mention of potentially defunding NPR, sort of as an example. The point seems to be, if we can debate funding for that, surely we should be debating funding for Planned Parenthood given these serious claims.
Okay, so let's try to sum up what we've drawn from these sources. We have Planned Parenthood presented as, a huge and growing player in gender-affirming care.
Right, with a massive increase in young patients, particularly 18 to 22-year-olds.
Then we have these concerns raised about how easy access is, the level of oversight, especially with things like virtual consults.
And coupled with that, the direct allegations of targeting minors online and in schools and potentially obscuring things from parents.
And all this is set against the backdrop of Planned Parenthood's major role in abortion services and these other very serious allegations from live action about body parts, privacy violations.
Exactly. Which all funnels into this strong argument in the Daily Wire piece, questioning the nearly $700 million in annual federal funding and calling for, well, drastic action defunding at minimum, or even shutting them down.
It's clearly, an incredibly complex and polarizing issue. The details presented in these sources really touch on some fundamental debates.
Absolutely. Healthcare access, parental rights, medical ethics, government funding. It's all tangled together here.
So, thinking about this for you, the listener, given the gravity of these allegations from the sources, the scale of the organization, the amount of public money involved, what are perhaps the most critical questions people should be asking themselves, or maybe researching further, about these intersecting issues of healthcare, rights, and ethics in this whole debate?
You are not God, only He can create a man and woman. If you think you can, you are defying God's plan.
The evil Dr. Frankenstein care about riches, not your mental health. Deep dive podcast show, let's dive in.
Amen.
Quam dementia tua est, spiritus qui venita Deo super, orabo prote Deus te amant. A montibus ad campos, ab urbibus ad mare, stamus pro libertate, pro fide et familia. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. Mergimus profunde in cordis nostri credimus, valores conservativi in animis nostris intertes.